Kids would be alive today in Newtown, Connecticut, if the law that we're proposing today were in place on December 14th of last year. It's as simple as that.
That is Chris Murphy. He's a senator from Connecticut making a bold assertion that had the gun control bill, the gun ban, on offer from Senate Democrats as of yesterday, were in place, that the kids at the Newtown school would be alive today. But the gun that was used doesn't seem to have been on the list of banned guns that the Senate is talking about, and this is getting very complicated, and it is opening up a lot of old wounds on the American psyche as it relates to gun control, gun violence, Second Amendment rights, and all of these things. No two better people than Ford O'Connell. He's the chairman of the Civic Forum PAC. He's a former McCain-Palin presidential campaign advisor. I know that to be accurate. And Debbie Dingell, she is the president of D2 Strategies, and she is the wife of John Dingell, the Democrat from Michigan and the dean of the House. That puts her on the blue team. Welcome, welcome. Okay. Now, Rahm Emanuel wants to go after banks that fund, that provide revolving credit for gun makers. Joe Biden is in Virginia today talking about background checks. Senate Democrats are pushing hard on this, but Debbie, you warned of this, you cautioned of this, is that if you don't start with finding common things and building upon them, you will never get the consensus necessary to do what your husband helped do in 1994, which was to get some kind of a weapons ban in place or do something proactive on this. What's the state of play now?
Well, I think you're seeing bills introduced that many people on the far left are supporting, but I don't think they stand a chance of being passed in either the House or the Senate.
Right. The complaint from people who are pro-Second Amendment rights, and, you know, this, we were talking with Steve Hayes in the last segment about abortion. You end up in a very similar place here, is that people hold sharply divergent views, and if you can't agree on the basic framework of the argument, you're not going to be able to get anyplace else. But for people that have strongly held pro-Second Amendment views here, what they're saying is this isn't about school shootings anymore.
No.
This is now about affecting even broader gun control to deal with crime in the cities, in places like Chicago and in places like Detroit. That's what they care about. And that we're walking past things that might be done to help prevent school shootings.
I think that's absolutely accurate. And I think that a lot of people who prize the Second Amendment really see this as trying to fully limit their rights, and I think that's why we're seeing a knee-jerk reaction out there. And I also think one of the things you and I were talking about in the green room is that I think part of the reason why this is going to have a tough time in the Senate, even things like background checks, is because you have a set of Democrats in red states where the president, got less than 42% of the vote. And for their constituents, the Second Amendment is just so highly prized. And anything seen as sort of close to being what we'll call a gun grab just isn't going to pass because of the views and the conversation going back and forth.
Okay. I think that one of the things that's unfortunately happened, which you are correct that I did warn about, is they're going to put everybody into the corner and everybody's going to get instantly defensive. Mm-hmm. I think if you were to have thoughtful conversations with people who have been strong supporters of the Second Amendment, they would be willing to talk about background checks.
I absolutely agree with you.
And talk about mental illness and how do you take that a step further. But if you don't get to real substantive conversations where people can find common ground and immediately go for these emotional, passionate things that will never pass, you're not going to end up doing anything.
Now, Mark Kirk, a Republican from Illinois, moderate Republican from Illinois, Joe Manchin, moderate Democrat from West Virginia, are trying to do a consensus builder, and they're going to offer a background check plan. Now, that people will acknowledge, wouldn't have affected the ability of the shooter in Newtown to have gotten the guns because he just took his mama's guns. He didn't go buy those guns. He just took them. Now, of course, there's the open question of how would a mother who is thinking about having her son committed leave guns unlocked in her home is an open question, but one will not probably have the answer to. What Manchin and Kirk are trying to do is put together there's a core of something to begin something for. Do you think it can work?
I absolutely do think it can work, and I think particularly with Joe Manchin, who is prized by Second Amendment, folks.
He's A-rated.
He is A-rated, and I think that he is. And I said this a long time ago, at least right after Newtown. I said anything that's going to work with respect to firearms, background checks, it really does have to start with Joe Manchin. And I think that he's somebody who could be key. I also think Mark Warner in Virginia is somebody else who could be key because he's really on that geographical dividing line we're talking about. And I think folks like that are really the folks to go to. And I think that part of the problem why this isn't working out the way that Democrats would like it to work out is because they followed the president, who has a tendency to turn social issues into a knee-jerk reaction that produces feel-good legislation that accomplishes nothing. And I think in this case, starting small and working out, we could find some things that will help to try to limit future tragedies like Newtown.
Pat Leahy, as chair of the Judiciary Committee, is also going to be absolutely positively critical because he comes from a state where the right to bear arms is something that is very...
Yeah, Vermont, they may grow a lot of pot up there, but they also carry a lot of pistols. They're serious about their gun rights.
1994 happened because President Clinton himself became personally involved, talked to the people that were had strong feelings, and ended up personally negotiating that agreement that got done that night. It's going to take those kind of personal relationships and not demonizing those that are...
Demonizing the gun culture is bad.
Or demonizing, would you also allow that demonizing the gun grabbers, calling everybody who wants to do anything a gun
absolutely,
grabber?
But when I see folks like Dick Durbin out there talking about hunters and guns, he's missing the entire point of the Second Amendment, which is self-defense and home protection. Okay, that is really what those guys look at. And
or the ability to protect, for many of these people, the ability to protect the freedom of speech or any of those basic freedms is protected by that right to bear arms.
Exactly.
Absolutely. And see, I agree with you 100%.
Okay. Now, see, we're gonna close it on that because we're getting some warm fuzzies here, and that's what we like on a No Tie Friday, some warm fuzzies.